Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unraveling a massive real estate mystery playing out in the Golden State. For years, California's housing market has felt like, well, a runaway freight train, right? Just pushing buyers to the absolute financial brink. But recently, we've started seeing a subtle yet super significant pull in the exact opposite direction. So, what's actually happening out west? And what does it mean for the future? To truly grasp this shift, we first need to understand the sheer scale of the mountain buyers are trying to climb. $869,300. Just let that sink in for a second. That is a massive number. According to recent data from the California Association of Realtors, that is the median price of a home in California right now. It exerts this intense gravitational pull on a buyer's wallet that's honestly hard to comprehend until you're literally sitting there signing the paperwork. Which brings us to Section 1, the Golden State Premium. Before we throw too many numbers around, let's just make sure we're on the same page about what median actually means. A median-priced home is simply the exact middle point of all homes sold in a given time frame. So exactly half the homes sold for more than this price and exactly half sold for less. It's really important to note that it's not the average. Averages get unfairly skeeved upward by a few multi-million-dollar mega mansions. The median? That's the true honest center of the market. And right now, California's center is sitting at that towering $869,000 mark. And this brilliantly illustrates just how steep that Golden State Premium really is. When you hold California's median home prices up against the national numbers, the contrast is absolutely staggering. Depending on whether you're looking at Redfin data or the state realtors data, the California median sits roughly between $780,000 and $869,000. Meanwhile, the national median sale price is hanging out in the low 400,000s, specifically between $414,000 and $423,000. You are basically paying double just to get your foot in the front door in California. Now, let's look at Section 2, defining the affordability problem. Here's the harsh reality. By the end of 2025, just 18% of Californians could actually afford to buy that median-priced home. That leaves a massive 82% stuck on the outside looking in. Think of trying to climb a property ladder, but the very first rung is 10 feet off the ground. For the vast majority of residents, especially folks with lower incomes, making that initial jump is just mathematically impossible right now. To really see the severity of this localized problem, let's zoom out and compare California's reality to the rest of the country. Nationwide, 39% of households can afford the national median-priced home. Sure, 39% still means a majority are priced out, but compared to California's tiny 18% sliver, the national market looks incredibly accessible. This affordability crisis is just uniquely extreme in the Golden State. Moving on to Section 3. Why did prices skyrocket? This wild situation certainly didn't happen overnight. It was really a perfect storm of 3 distinct steps that launched home prices upward nationwide over the last few years. First, we had that massive pandemic-era home buying frenzy, where suddenly everybody decided they desperately needed more space. Second, all that demand was fueled by historically low borrowing costs. Money was incredibly cheap to borrow. And third, all those eager buyers crashed headfirst into a chronic lack of inventory. Just to be totally clear on that third point, an inventory shortage happens when the demand from buyers heavily outweighs the supply of available homes for sale. Picture a high-stakes game of musical chairs. You've got 50 eager players circling around, but there are only 10 chairs. When the music stops, the competition for those few spots is incredibly fierce, and people are willing to pay a massive premium just to guarantee they get a seat. But in California, this game of musical chairs is even more brutal. Why? Because the state's strict building regulations and incredibly lengthy approval processes severely limit the construction of new homes. While the rest of the country might be trying to quickly build more chairs to accommodate all the players, California's notorious red tape slows the addition of new chairs down to an absolute crawl. The shortage isn't just a temporary blip, it's become completely chronic. Let's transition into Section 4. The tide is turning. Despite all that history we just went through, we're actually seeing some surprising clues that affordability is ticking slightly upward. In the fourth quarter of 2024, only 16% of Californians could afford a home. But by the end of 2025, that number had crept up to 18%. In places like the San Francisco Bay Area, it even reached 23%. The main driver for this upward shift is a drop in the effective interest rate. Now, the effective interest rate isn't just that flashy sticker price you see advertised on a billboard. It's the true, complete cost of borrowing money for a mortgage, meaning it accounts for compounding and all those hidden fees. When this effective rate goes down, your actual monthly payment goes down with it, making the home suddenly way more affordable on a standard monthly budget.
And this shift is super clear in the recent data. Between October and December of 2025, that effective interest rate dropped for the third consecutive quarter. It actually hit its lowest point since the third quarter of 2022. Mortgage rates are obviously still roughly double what they were during those pandemic lows, sure, but this steady decline at the end of 2025 gave California buyers some much-needed breathing room. Because of the overall high costs, sales have generally been sluggish, and that leads us to a fascinating observation. Buyers are gaining more leverage, and price growth has waned. Think of the housing market like a playground seesaw. For years, sellers have been sitting heavily on one side, completely dictating the terms. But as high prices cause sales to slow down, those sluggish sales start adding weight to the buyer's side of the seesaw. The balance tips. Sellers are finally forced to ease up, negotiate, and stop aggressively raising prices just to get a deal done.
And we can actually see that new leverage showing up in the hard data. Negative 2.2%. In the fourth quarter of 2025, the median price of an existing single-family home in California fell by 2.2% for the second straight quarter. So prices aren't just slowing down, they are actively retreating a bit. Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds into what happens in 2026. We've seen the historical push, we've looked at the recent poll, so what are the experts predicting for the current year? Well, the absolute most optimistic piece of news moving forward is this. Wage growth is finally outpacing home price growth. Think about that. For the first time in years, the amount of money people are taking home in their paychecks is growing faster than the price tags on the houses they want to buy. This is the fundamental, sustainable engine that drives true housing affordability over the long haul. That being said, the forecast for 2026 is definitely a bit of a mixed bag. Experts do expect mortgage rates to fall to somewhere around 6% this year, and home prices should remain pretty soft in the short term. However, there is a serious looming threat of a spring buying rebound. As the traditional home buying season picks back up, we might see a sudden surge in demand that crashes right back into that dwindling stock of available homes. It's a very, very delicate balance. Which leaves us with this massive question to chew on moving forward. With wages finally outpacing home prices and interest rates easing up, is the California property ladder finally lowering its first rung? Or is this just a brief, quiet pause before a chaotic spring frenzy kicks off all over again? The push and pull dynamic of this market is far from settled, and it's definitely something we're going to keep a close eye on. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.